from whom the Drug Enforcement Administration locked up for 4 days in a windowless cell, handcuffed, with no food and no water, is now preparing to sue the agency for up to $20 million. Here he is. His name is Daniel Chong. Agents detained him on a drug raid at a friend's home. The feds, I should say, reportedly told Chong that he would not be charged with anything, and then they put him in a holding cell with no toilet or anything else, and then they admit they forgot he was there. Chong says he screamed for days, ended up drinking his own urine. He says he hallucinated so intensely that cartoon characters told him to claw through the walls. He says he even attempted to carve "Sorry Mom" onto his own arm and contemplated suicide. Agents later found him close to death in kidney failure. Now his attorney says that constitutes torture. Trace Gallagher is live in Los Angeles with more on this. I suppose you can claim torture isn't torture if you want to. I've seen it done before, but are they doing this here?
Yeah, nobody is so far yet. In fact, the lawyer for Daniel Chong is citing the Detainee Treatment Act of 2005 in his argument, which says, and I'm quoting here, "No individual in the custody or under the physical control of the United States government shall be subject to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment." Kind of hard to argue that 4 days without food and water is not cruel and inhumane. And remember, Chong had handcuffs on the entire time, which is why it was probably so difficult for him to try and use his glasses to carve a goodbye mess to his mother. Listen.
This is an S in pitch black, trying to write "Sorry Mom," but I couldn't even aim, so I gave up on that one.
Now, if this is torture under the act, he is entitled to compensation, and as you said, Shep, they're looking for up to $20 million.
What's the Drug Enforcement Administration saying, Trace?
Very little at this time. In fact, nobody from any side is disputing any part of Daniel Chong's story. The DEA gave us a statement which says, and I'm quoting, "I am deeply troubled by the incident that occurred here last week. I extend my deepest apologies to the young man and want to express that this event is not indicative of the high standards that I hold my employees to. I have personally ordered an extensive review of our policies and procedures." So far, it looks like the DEA is looking for a mea culpa. Here is Daniel Chong's attorney. Listen.
People in this particular case who are responsible should be held responsible. He screamed hundreds of times for help. He began to dig into the walls, thinking that he could get water that way.
Congressman Darrell Issa from California, he's the chair of the Oversight Committee. He is now also asking the DEA to explain itself in this matter. An investigation is still underway, Shep.
Trace Gallagher in Los Angeles. Trace, thanks. Let's take this to the lawyers. Fox News legal analyst Arthur Aidala is with us on your left. And that other guy, Randy Zellen, in his costume today on the right. An accident. This guy, the backstory is this guy was over at a friend's house. That they came in, did a drug bust there. He admits he'd gone over there to smoke some weed with his friends, but there were some other drugs in there and other people were in trouble. But he wasn't in any trouble. They were just going to detain him and then let him go. And then they forgot him. The question now is that worth 20 mil? 25 sitting on 25 mil.
When you read these articles and when you read when he went through, I mean, it was bad stuff. I mean, you mentioned earlier, he was almost dead.
Yeah.
And the other interesting is the 3 times he drank his own urine. The only sustenance he had, he said, was a packet of white powder that he found wrapped in the blanket that was in the cell, which turns out to be methamphetamine, which I think is what's commonly known on the street as crystal meth.
Yeah.
So the only sustenance he has is drugs. The kid is in there taking a hallucinogenic drug with no food, no water. I can tell you, and Randy can tell you, our clients who sometimes wind up in solitary confinement or in the hole, as it's called, Shepard, you hear things, you start having conversations with yourself, you lose your mind. You couple that with no food, no water, no toilet, and you're handcuffed. That's worth a lot of money.
And look, I have conversations with myself all the time. I'm not hallucinating. And thank God they didn't charge him with possession of the crystal meth, so I think they acted reasonably. But in all seriousness, look, it's an unfortunate accident, and let's start with that. This notion of that he was being tortured, usually one tortures another for the purpose of getting something from them.
Right.
There was no torture here. It was a mess up, a screw up. They forgot about him. So let's forget about torture.
They have to pay for that?
Well, there's a question of immunity.
They said they weren't going to charge him with anything.
That's
they just
correct.
Locked him up.
Which again flies in the face of any notion that they were looking to torture him. They messed up.
So it was an accident. So Randy, what happens if one of the agents happens to be cleaning his gun while he's sitting there, and he discharges and he goes through his belly. He lives, but he's in horrific pain and he's scarred for life. It's an accident. What do you do?
Well, fortunately, that wasn't the case.
No, but this is even worse. This is worse. Randy, think about 5 days. What's today? Is Thursday. Sunday morning, you're handcuffed.
5 mil a
You're
day.
innocent.
5 mil a day.
You missed 2 Rangers games and I believe it's been bad.
The Yankees got shut out, so.
Drinking your
Rangers
urine,
won.
Shepard. Drinking your
Come on,
urine.
5 mil a day?
I thought you couldn't even drink your urine, quite frankly. I thought it's toxic.
No,
or
actually, you
something
can. What
like
you
that.
can do is
Careful. Just move on from that. Now, the question is, I don't want to think about urine drinking, if you don't mind.
it could have been
Poor
worse.
guy.
Could have been worse.
I mean, they weren't even charging him with anything, and you just forget him? Somebody got to pay for that, right?
Somebody's got to pay, but does somebody have to pay 5 mil a day?
I don't know why you put a dollar amount on it. I don't know if I can
Well,
quantify
for
such
5 mil a day, go lock me up in a cell somewhere and forget about me.
Oh, really?
He's in the hospital for 5 days afterwards, Randy. He's got kidney failure, severe dehydration. I mean, he was close to death. When the government almost kills you because they mess up, it's worth a hell of a lot of
Well,
money.
I don't know. What do we do with the drone people?
Oh, my God. He's right about that, though. Thank you.
And when they say, I want my lawyer, you tell them, shut up.
Your time
Don't
has
get a
expired.
lawyer. You're an enemy combatant.